Craig.
Oh, it was Craig.
Okay, I guess you don't get to meet Alistair today, Kippy. I'm
Oh.
sorry. It's his country cousin Craig, and he's not as fancy as Alistair. He doesn't have a monocle or anything, but at least he pays his bills.
Yeah,
Alistair.
I was gonna say he's probably not as fancy because Alistair makes him pay for him too. Like poor Craig is like trying to pay for both of them, and in this economy, come on.
Yeah,
poor guy.
Yeah, Alistair, you would think that he has money because of his monocle and the way he always holds his little pinky when he's drinking his tea. But the dude, I mean, I guess that's why he's rich, right? The rich just don't like to spend. I guess that checks out.
He acts rich, but yeah. I mean, I don't get it. He brings tea to a tavern. You would think he'd be drinking mead or something, but no, he's like.
You know what? That's a good point, Albu. We don't even serve tea. How the hell is he? This dude's so cheap, he brings his own tea to the tavern.
Exactly.
Wow.
But why is Craig paying for him? I don't get it.
That makes no sense. Whatever. Guys, welcome into the TBD Tavern. This is Silver Blaze X. And today I have here my co-host, the wondering, sexy Ambu. And we also have a special guest today. Just accept the love. And we have
Silver.
Kippy. I'm sorry. Do you want to go as Kippy or Kippurpuppygirl?
You can just say Kippy. It's fine.
Kippy. So we have Kippy, right? Who's going to be joining us today on this episode where we're going to be talking about Atla, and that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And we're going to talk about what everybody is going crazy about right now, which is the live action, right, that just came out on Netflix, and how crazy it's been. And crazy, I don't mean crazy, oh man, it's crazy good, but crazy controversial, I think. Right, Ambu?
Yeah. Honestly, just seeing everything on Twitter, the reactions between people who try to give the show the benefit of the doubt and the people who don't like the show. There's also controversies around some of the, like, one of the actors. It's a mess out there, to put it nicely. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it has been. It has been. And Kippy, sorry to kind of point the attention at you almost immediately right off the bat. But, how did you become a fan of Atla? How did you first come into this weird world of the Avatar?
So I was actually there in the beginning of time when it was first announced. And I was a little bit late to the game, but then I had a lot of friends who wanted to do watch-alongs at the time. So when the series aired on, I believe it was Nickelodeon, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We made it our mission to do watch-alongs every week. And yeah, I'm a huge fan. And it kind of, we instantly found our kin to our characters, and that kind of made it even more of an exciting thing for us to kind of take on these personas, I guess you could say, of like, what friend was what character, and that kind of added to the silliness of it all.
Hold on. So. Who did you align yourself with, Kippy?
So I was Aang.
I can see it.
But I was also, because I did cosplay as well, and I cosplayed as like a Chibi Appa, so.
That's adorable.
That's adorable. Picture story didn't happen. Okay, cool. So Kippy is bald. Got it. Now we know how the pup look. Kippy looks like.
It's a great look.
Perfect. Great. Did you have that same experience, Lambu, when you first got into Atla?
Yeah. So mine actually was, I saw episodes sporadically when Avatar: The Last Airbender first came out. I actually kind of jumped in more consistently around book 2 and then really dug it. And then I thought I had watched everything and then decided one day to rewatch it years down the line, because my roommate at the time and I was like talking about Avatar, and I was like, you know what, I should give it a watch. and realized I had missed a lot and fell in love with the world and fell in love with the world building. And one of the things that like I'm sure we'll dabble into later is I just love how well crafted the story is and how lovingly it's crafted. And that's how I kind of fell into it. Was I just wanted to revisit it. I was looking for a comfort show to get back into, and yeah, just dove into the rabbit hole and never looked back.
Never looked back. And what a deep hole it is, right? Because it's a beautiful little world that has a little bit of everything. I was almost called it magic, but it's not magic. The animated series almost immediately addresses that, right? From what I recall, they kind of try and immediately differentiate what these benders do, and that is definitely not magic, but more sort of like a world energy, or like an energy that comes from within to be able to connect with nature. And I think we see more of the lore in the comics and in the other expanded universes, like the Korra universe, right? It tells a little bit more about how it all just kind of like works in that sort of universe. My experience isn't as wholesome and cool as yours, as both of y'all's. Mine was, I don't remember. That's how wholesome it is. I don't remember. But it's just kind of like knowledge that's just in my brain. I'm going to say that I think I first got into Atla back in maybe my early college years.
Okay.
Not sure if I was watching it on TV, or it's just something I saw. I started watching online on legitimate sites. Definitely not pirated whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, totally legal.
Very legal and
Sorry,
legitimate.
did I see a skull of bones flying behind you, Silver? What happened?
No, what? Nope, nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. Nope. Yeah. So let's talk about the live action. And yikes! no, wait. Actually, no. Let's keep softening it up a little bit.
Sure.
What were some of your favorite parts about Atla? By the way, Kippy. Like, is there like anything that you when you think about Avatar: The Last Airbender? What is the thing you remember most lovingly? It's like, is there a specific character? Is there scenes? What is the thing that you think is what is your most favorite part of Atla?
Based on the animated series, is that what you mean?
Yes, animated series. Yes, still keep it PG.
Yeah. So for me, Appa is like my one true love. He's adorable. I have a plushie of Appa. I have figures and things like that. So he was kind of my big comfort character, and I really loved the way that like him and Aang had this special bond together. You know, how he was introduced, you know, because the Airbenders like chose I guess they didn't choose, but like the Sky Bison chose, you know, which Airbender they wanted to bond with and things like that. And it just felt like a really like wholesome and adorable thing. And then to see that they kind of grew together, I thought that was really just like just perfect for like a nomad / like monk society, I guess. Like it all made sense that it was all about nature and the balance and things like that. But I think for me it was there was a lot of silly stuff, but then every now and then there would just be a really deep lesson. And especially for Aang, who was going through kind of a lot. So I liked that it wasn't just like silly and lighthearted, but they also put some really like meaningful messages in the story as well.
Yeah. If you don't mind me interjecting, Silver, that's the thing that I really loved about the show was it really struck a balance between the lighthearted moments that I felt were necessary versus the kind of like darker elements that bring it back to feeling very real and very dark. Because like some of the moments that really stick out to me is, and this is in I think book 2 or book 3 when Appa is kidnapped. And how Aang, how Aang's rage really gets the better of him, and how it shows that Aang chooses to like always be compassionate and show empathy and show kindness, and how like it's a choice and it's not just something that's natural, because you see what comes of, you see like how it consumes Aang a lot. And then the another moment for me is like, again in the later books when he is trying to get back his ki to be able to bend again, and he is with the guy meditating and like trying to learn how to forgive himself to open the 7 different chakra gates. It's just, there's little moments like that that are great. And then you have, like you said, Kippy, the moment where we see Appa choose Aang as like his person, and how loving and how tender it is. And I really love the way that the show allows those moments to be there, because I think the show is serious. I mean, we're dealing with war and responsibilities and all that other stuff and very heavy themes, but you don't want to just bludgeon your viewers to with nothing but like sadness and seriousness. And the show does a really great job of finding where the two contrasting ideas come together. And so I think that's what really stands out to me too, Kippy, is like the blending of the lighthearted with the serious tones.
Yeah. They definitely know how to blend that very well. By the way, Kippy, fun fact for add more wholesomeness between the relationship of the bisons and the monks, right? I recently found out that so the air nomads, right, the monks, they used to be able to fly, right? That was an ability they used to have at the very beginning, but they out of nowhere stopped being able to fly. Why? So according to the comic, they lost the ability to fly because in order to fly, you have to let go of all earthly connections, possessions, etc. But because just how the bisons choose them, they chose to also have these little partners, right? And by choosing to have these little partners, those bisons, right, they became connected to the earth. And now the nomads, the airbenders can't fly anymore because of that same reason. So they kind of now have this little relationship. You know, they fly them around and they choose each other. It's not just always the bison that chooses you, but they as a society, I guess, as people, chose the bisons as well and lost that ability to fly. So there you go. Fun fact.
I'm not crying. You're crying, obviously.
Sorry, I'm cutting a lot of onions right now. But no,
no, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I do love that because, you know, I think the air nomads are a representation like Buddhism and letting go of earthly attachments and everything, but they chose to attach to the bison, and it's so wholesome. Thank you for sharing that fact, Silver. That makes my heart grow 3 sizes too big. So thank you.
Yeah, it made my cold hard dark heart beat at least once, for sure. Because you know, at least once. You know, because people choose multiple things to be attached to the world, and people choose earthly possessions all the time. I do all the time. I couldn't live without video games, my computer, right? But instead, I'm picking a computer in video games. And meanwhile, here are the air nomads picking like a beautiful little creature that's adorable and fluffy. And it also picks them, you know, and then they have this nice little friendship for an entire lifetime, right? But yeah, so you know, as far as goes, my favorite parts of Atla, for me, have been always the cabbage guy, and I already told Ambu earlier before we started recording. That is literally my most favorite part of Avatar: The Last Airbender is that poor cabbage man. It almost makes me hate Aang, to be honest with you, because Aang just like wrecks that poor man's life on a daily. No one ever
apologizes to that man.
No, him. You know, like the man's just trying to make a living in the middle of a world where there's war, you know, and all he has to give and grow and sell to provide to his maid's little cabbage family is to sell cabbages. Right? Yeah. We don't know his life. We don't know how much is being affected. And here's Aang fucking fighting all over the boss sensei, destroying his fucking little stand every single chance he sees him whenever he's popped out on the series. And that costs money, man, to get another little cart and put all his little cabbages together. How many? How many? I don't know. Too many. One is too many. I mean, think about it. Like, if in a world where there's like not a lot of resources, it's not like he can like wood bend. He can't wood bend a cart into existence.
But what if he's the one that makes his own carts? That kind of makes it worse.
Poor guy's probably like so proud of his cart that he's showing off to his wife and kids. Like, I'm gonna go sell these cabbages.
He has his own signature that he like carves into the wood on one of the pieces.
That's horrible.
Like,
this makes it even worse.
Could you imagine if they added it to the animated show where it's like you see the piece fly off and you see the signature as it's like in front of the screen? Like,
that would hurt me.
I don't know why, but you just have me imagine now where like I imagine he goes like, one day, Dad, I'm gonna build the greatest like thing ever. Like, I'm gonna build it, I'm gonna sell all my cabbages. I'll prove you wrong. And then Aang's just like,
he's a flashback to his childhood dream.
Talking like him like falling asleep at his like desk, creating the perfect cart, finding the perfect balance, knowing how to make it aerodynamic, knowing the best way to like shift the weight and everything, and then Aang just ruins it in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And it's not like even Aang's trying to avoid it. If he's this like peaceful being of protecting everybody in the world, right, and doesn't like violence, then why does he wreck this poor man's life on the daily? Okay,
it's true that it's the one thing that he never. I'm sorry, I don't mean to like jump in, but like I'm going to anyway. But like he in the whole series, he's constantly apologizing to people or talking about how things have changed his viewpoint to understand something deeper, or he's always there to help other people or to be of service of some kind. But the Cabbage Man is literally like the one man that he does none of those things for.
Yeah. That poor man gets wrecked physically, emotionally, everything. It's horrible.
He
And
lost his wife. He lost his kiss. No, okay.
For all we know, he did.
I just imagine like at some point Aang's older, walking into Amashu again, sees him. The poor man's just like walking, looking all haggard, and just like sees Aang. Just like, you made my wife leave me and my kids.
So that's why Aang died at his old age. It wasn't old age that killed Aang. It was the cabbage guy. Just nobody wants to just say it out loud because it's the Avatar. Nobody wants to like admit that a cabbage man literally killed the Avatar.
Oh, I love how we've created lore here of the Cabbage Man.
It could be real, man. The Atla lore sometimes can get kind of dark, so I wouldn't be surprised if out of nowhere he turns to like a life of crime somehow, or like creates a syndicate that is like strictly just focused on like assassinating the Avatar.
The Cabbage Gang.
He's the reason why Amon appears in Korra. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Right.
There it is. And it all comes full circle.
It's all coming together, yeah.
So we know now that the Cabbage Man is like your homie. We get it. Were there any other moments of saying that to you, Silver?
No, I mean, for me, it's just that has been the thing. And the other thing is I'm just focusing on the bad things. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Like I focus on things that people don't like notice too much. Like, for example, Aang doesn't like to quote unquote hurt people, but he's killed a lot of people. Like a lot of people have been killed by the Avatar, and like he's wrecked a lot of bad guys. But I don't know why people don't like to talk about how Aang like just wrecks these humans left and right all the single time. But then he comes off as like this damaged, hurt soul. Oh no, poor me! I have to be the Avatar. Slap, slap, destroy cabbage. You know,
They have Avatar Kyoshi, so I mean, and she was really brutal.
Oh yeah, true.
But like,
no. But that was Kyoshi. Her mindset was of like war. But Aang is like, no, I'm a monk. I'm peaceful.
Oh, true.
Smack, destroy Cabbage Man's life.
Well, I think for Aang, and this is like kind of his philosophy that is talked about both in the live action and in the animated series. A lot of it is built for defense, and he's not trying to kill. It's more like he's using it for what is considered for the moral good. So, like, it's kind of like, I don't know if he's necessarily trying to kill people, but it's gonna kind of happen, unfortunately, in war. And I think that's why Kyoshi's whole thing of, like, sometimes killing is justified is so fascinating. It's such a stark thing when we hear that from Kyoshi, because it's like, we have Aang who really tries hard to not kill unless if it becomes like a situation where he can't control it, versus Kyoshi who's like, yeah, I'll murder someone if I got to. Like, it's war, Aang. You got to do it whether you like it or not.
I'm just saying, for example, Aang would never hurt Appa, right, or Momo, but he's killed other creatures like the buzzard wasps that during the right now, speaking of Appa, right, when he was kidnapped when in the desert, he kills those giant insects, right? But I mean, at what point does it stop becoming like Momo versus like a gigantic ass insect? Like, they're both living creatures in this world, right?
Well, oh man, we could argue about this all day. I would just say my TLDR argument for this, and Kippy, you can always interject whenever you want to, is in that moment we were seeing how Aang can be consumed by his anger and how his morals and values can be let go because they had taken Appa. I think that was so pertinent to that episode, is to show again that Aang chooses to try to live a life of peace and defense and like being morally good, and how easy it is to be swept away into what we consider evil. I mean, you think about Zuko's character arc, right? Of how he's made to be the antagonist for a lot of the show, but you realize that he's just a sad boy that feels like he has to be what his father wants him to be, but he can't be who he wants to be. And so I think that's just kind of like what it shows, is that sometimes people are of the same coin, they're just in different circumstances and different perspectives. It harkens back to when
Zuko never killed any bugs. Just kidding. Just kidding.
But I mean, like, it. So one moment that I really want to touch on later when we talk about the live action, I'm glad the live action does, is the moment when Aang talks about how he says, I wonder if we could have been friends if we had met in the past. Because it kind of shows how Aang sees the good in Zuko and empathizes with them and who he is, in terms of like realizing that this is just a boy who's broken by his dad, who is trying to live up to the ideals that's been forced down his throat, but really he's a softie. And he is a good person. He's just caught in expectations. And so I think that's what kind of like is so interesting about that particular instance in that episode, is like, even good people can do bad things, but it's again context and understanding being human and being flawed.
That was something that was from the animated series, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I zoned out for a second. I thought you were saying it wasn't a part of it. I was like, no, that was actually a scene.
No, I was saying I was glad that the live action did it.
Yeah,
that's why.
There were definitely a lot of key moments that, I know we're gonna get into it later, but I just quickly want to say there were some key moments that they did include, like that I was very happy were there.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, there was a lot that was changed and everything. So it was just kind of like, okay, at least there were some like roots that they kept in there. So that made me happy too.
I agree.
Yeah. No, the live action though, one of the biggest things that I have issues with, since we're talking about Zuko, I'm sorry to hop on like a lot, but what is up with that journal? Like, that wasn't in the animated series, right? Like, that journal to me was like a cop out on the writing. It's kind of like lazy, right? Because it explains a lot of the lore of the Avatar that we were supposed to see throughout different episodes, but instead it's like, no, let's make Zuko this like very tortured emo kid who is very gentle but has an emotionally abusive and physically abusive father, and let's make him journal. Like as if it's therapy for some reason. And then let's just make him journal about everything having to do about the Avatar that just coincidentally it's exactly what Aang needs to know to be able to begin on his journal. Bro, come on, give me a break.
Well,
that was lazy.
Well, sorry if I'm interrupting or interjecting, but I think that's the problem with a lot of Netflix live actions is they have to sacrifice so much and condense it to make it work that some of the decision making is kind of boneheaded. Like that journal, like you brought up, I think in one sense it's supposed to humanize Zuko for the viewer, but then another it's very convenient. It's like when I almost didn't watch this show because within the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes of like episode 1, when the grandma is saying like the original introduction.
Oh my god!
Like that
was so cheesy. I even me who's like a hardcore like Avatar fan, when that part came up, I was laughing. I was like, no, they didn't. Like word for word.
I kid you not. I think I pressed the space bar. I got up and I was like, no, like y'all, there ain't no way they did this and that they can get away with it. But I was like,
they did Gran that way.
I know.
Well, Ambu. I mean, the thing is about Netflix, on the live actions, they have to compress so much things to be able to make things make sense. Blah 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 blah. Everything you just told me.
Well, no, okay. I'm just saying.
That is what throws you off, not the journal. Okay, that's fine.
No, but I guess my point is this that
the journal.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that like Netflix has this obsession with 8-episode seasons. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. One of the things I think would have been better is that the show actually had like a full 13 episodes, to actually like explore stuff and give more room to breathe for the story. So I think the show suffers a lot from here, do it in 8 episodes. Tell like a 20-episode book and tell it in 8 episodes. And they're like, well, shoot, how's Aang gonna like figure out where Kyoshi Island is and where to go to Avatar Roku? Oh, you know what? We could put it in a journal, and he steals it from Zuko, and there you go. And you're like, bro, what?
What gets me is that they had an opening for the Netflix series, and it had narration like the original, but rather than using the original intro, and when I first watched it, because I was like, okay, it's kind of different and it feels weird, but maybe they did that because Mike and Brian left, and so there's certain things that they're not allowed to like directly copy. And I was like, I guess that kind of makes sense. But then I get to the scene with Gran, and I was like, huh? Like, huh? Like, I don't get. I didn't understand the direction of that, and like, I don't know how she did that scene without cracking up. So like, props to her.
Seriously,
I would have been just laughing my ass off the whole time.
That deserves an Oscar, in my opinion, right there. 100%. Like, I would have been fired from the set. They would have been like, you need to leave. You can't handle this.
I don't understand the choice for that. That's I thought I had it figured out, but apparently not. So.
But yeah, in general, Silver, I do agree with you that the journal was a weird choice and very Deus Ex Machina in terms of like helping Aang get to where he needed to go.
And the intro sucks. I agree with you guys.
Oh my god,
it's just a rough start. It's a rough start, honestly. I'm trying to imagine myself as somebody that first started watching Atla, but the live action first before I watched the animated series. And even then, I would have found a lot of these things very cringy and very awkward and very lazy, even without the knowledge that I already have of this world. I don't. I don't know still how to kind of give it to them. I don't know how they could have really done it though, to kind of like emulate that sort of like sweet, wholesome, goofy energy that the animated series has. Even if it was word for word, it would have still been weird and cringy to see, for example, at the very beginning, seeing Sokka and Katara on their little boat and them just kind of like fighting each other, and her just kind of like throwing a fit and her breaking the iceberg. And then that's how Aang comes to, back to life. And we saw that in the movie for what was it called? That horrible
we don't
movie.
talk about that.
Wait, what movie? There was no movie. There is no
the
first
Avatar movie.
Oh my bad. I must have been like a fever dream.
Yeah.
Anyways, they tried doing that. They tried doing that scene in that fever dream of a movie that I had in my mind.
Yeah.
And it still was very cringy. It was still very weird and extremely cringy. So I'm trying to give them credit for how they went about this entire different way of how they get Aang. Also, how, for example, when the Fire Nation comes to the village and how they have this wall. Right, because in the animated, what was it? It was like a few igloos, right?
Yeah.
Like a few little, places, houses, and here it's like a fortress of like the Water Tribe, what's left. But it's still much bigger than what's on the animated series, which was like almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get to see those adorable penguins. That
I know they like completely skipped that part. So going off of like what you're talking about, I definitely feel like they had the potential to make it more like the animated film in this series, because you do see parts like that, like the scene where you see Aang on his little like air ball and he runs into the statue, like the original opening had that. So, those are kind of like the little key moments where they're kind of paying tribute to the original animated series. And it is kind of cringy a little bit to see it in live action because things don't always translate completely. But I think for most people who are fans, like they don't entirely care about that because, it's paying proper tribute to a show that they love.
I agree.
But when you get to points like where they do change things up and the writing, I guess I understand because, it is Netflix and they have to crunch the story. But the fact that the story was all mixed up and put like mashed together in certain ways, like it was creative in a sense how they did it, but it was also like really hard to keep up with, okay, what book are we in? Because this is like the shit that happens in like book 3. So like here we are, and so that was kind of jarring for me more than other things, is just trying to figure out like where we are in the story or how they're bringing all that together. It was just kind of this big, I don't know, like it hurt my head to try to follow along with everything.
We call that a clusterfuck.
Well, to get kind of like piggyback off of that, I felt like I
clusterfuck, or I'm just kidding.
That it is a clusterfuck. But like so when I watched the first few episodes, I tried to be like, okay, I know that they've had to make some decisions here to really make it work. They wanted to set it in a more serious, somber tone. They really wanted to show like Aang having to like be thrusted into the role of the Avatar. I get like the weight of the responsibility, but then like I'm just gonna jump ahead real quick to iterate what some of the weird writing choices for me. Like Boomy as a character lost so much of what made Boomy work as a character.
And like
his like tasks that he challenges Aang for didn't land for me personally.
They didn't.
You know, one of the things is like, yeah, he was kind of a douche a little bit in like the animated series, but he didn't lose the humor that he had. It was very much like I'm trying to teach you the lesson that you have to learn how to think outside the box. You have to be prepared to make, to change how you think when you're fighting in war. And then this one is just like, fuck you, Aang. You left us to die? I'm going to make you do this impossible decision.
Yeah, Boomy would never.
Yeah. It didn't feel true to his character. And then, like, mixing that with when the kid that he discovers that is in, like, the little ship that he's in, and then combining that with Boomy's story and taking away the discovery of, like, the air temple and what had happened and, like, Aang's story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just,
they threw that out the window completely, man.
Yeah. Because they want... It just... Because that's the thing that bugged me about this show was, like, okay, you wanted to set a serious tone. I get that, with, like, showing what happens to the air nomads and all that. But I feel like it took away a lot of the emotional heft that Avatar, the animated series, was so good at balancing. Because you need to give Aang these moments in the beginning of how he's still a kid at the end of it all, who was afraid of learning that he was the Avatar, and then coming into a world where he's like, he doesn't know anything, he doesn't want to face it, like, who knows how the world is now, maybe he doesn't have to live up to that, and then, trying to run away from that responsibility, and then kind of being forced into realizing he can't escape it. Like, there's so much to Aang that gets lost in the story by the choices that are made. So on top of the confusion of mixing books, the tonality of the series threw me off completely.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Kibby.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say. Also, the thing about that was, and this is another part where they switched the story up, because that was something. The other air temple was something that Aang was supposed to find later, and that was supposed to be like a big deal for him. Because to him, all of the airbenders were gone. And so he felt like he was alone. And then, meeting all of those people, even though they weren't airbenders like he was, like, they were kind of respecting the story of the airbenders and trying to, kind of rebuild the temple and, like, kind of cause their story to live on in a way. But one thing they did was they had the father of, I forget his name, the one in the wheelchair kind of thing.
Tio. Tio is the kid, and the mechanist is the dad.
Yeah, so they had him as the person who created the mailing system, except that Aang talked about how him and Boomy used that back when he was there 100 years ago. So it was kind of like, okay, wait. I mean, like,
wait a minute.
That doesn't really make sense. Like, it made sense that they wanted to have him, like, be the person who created that, but then they kind of threw in the whole other thing, and it was just like, okay, be consistent. If you're gonna change things up this drastically, like, be consistent. I'm also sad they didn't have was it Flopsy?
Oh, Flopsy.
Boomy's, like, dog thing. So they had statues, but they didn't actually
Flopsy,
like.
That's right.
Yeah, they didn't actually, like, show Flopsy, and I was so upset. I was just like, how could you remove him?
Yeah.
How could you do him dirty like this?
Yeah, there's been, like, a good opportunities missed to add all these other, creatures from this world, right? And that would have been a perfect example. And they have the animation clearly because they did a fantastic job with Appa and with Momo.
Ostrich horses or whatever too.
Yeah,
they had those.
And then
then they held back on this.
June's, like, mole thing, whatever that is, the secret mole.
Yeah, the star-nosed mole that they use.
Yeah. So they definitely
they clearly
had it
can make
there,
it.
but then they just left out so many things.
Well,
it was totally disrespectful how that story is completely missed. We don't get to see that other air temple, which would have been a beautiful thing to experience and see as well. The Mechanist had a much better storyline than what we gave him. Tio just also missed a lot of other character development that he had, the kid, that disabled kid, as well. It was the way that they integrated it, like you said, right, with him designing the mailing system and all of that. It was poorly executed. It was like a punch to the throat to the fans, right? Hoping that we wouldn't notice the horrible write-in that they did of the Mechanist. If I was Danny Pudi, I would have been so disappointed in how they wrote his character in, because I was really excited about seeing, George Takei, Danny Pudi, Paul Sung-hyung Lee, a lot of really great actors, right? A lot of really good talent, but I was so sad to see how they wrote the Mechanist in for Danny Pudi, because he's a great actor that I think could have given us more than what Netflix put out with just 1-2 episodes of that. It wasn't good. One thing though, I will say really quick before I forget it, the best sort of honor that they've given Atlas so far on the live action casting has been that solid jawline from Sokka from the actor Ian Ousley.
Yeah.
That is probably the best sort of like homage that they've given Atlas so far. That kid has a jawline that could destroy the Fire Nation just on its own.
Looks like the cartoon almost.
Yeah,
he does, dude.
But I do have things to say about him. But as far as just looking at it from that perspective, that was. He does. He was a good cast. Yeah, he does well to take on that personality. Yeah. So I will give him that. I thought you were gonna say the live action cabbage guy, because I was actually really excited that they put him in there. And what made me laugh is that he didn't say "my cabbages" at first. They had the several scenes where he was like "my," and then they would stop or cut him off or something. And I was like, oh my God, are they not going to say it? And then after like the 5th time, he finally said it. And it was just kind of this build up to like that moment where I don't know how other fans were, but for me, I was like, hey,
but I was okay.
I
appreciate the build up, but the build up wasn't good enough for me, man. I just wanted to hear it. Okay.
Yeah, you're like, I wish you had just said it.
just say it. I was like, just say it many times. I don't care. Say it many times. Don't just build it up and then just say it once in a very Darth Vader. No, that's how it felt like. It felt like episode 3 of Star Wars and Darth Vader just being like, oh, it was horrible. I oh my God, I can't remember. I had completely put that off my memory. I had buried that, Kippy. God damn it. I had buried that in my brain so deep. It was so bad. Jesus Christ.
I was really hoping they would have the scene, and I think they had something similar, but not the exact one. But when they're all on it was supposed to be like Aang and Sokka and Katara, and I think Momo was there too. And they're on the mailing chute, and they end up going off course, and then they destroy the Cabbage Man's cart with the thing. But there's that slow motion where they do kind of like a Polaroid cam of them where they pause the scene or whatever, and then it's just this really goofy thing. I was really hoping they would do something like that, but they didn't, and I understand why, but I was just like, man, missed opportunity.
Why Kippy? Why did they do it? Because I don't see a reason why they could have missed that opportunity. It was a great
I feel like they definitely could have it was just real quick, but they changed that scene completely, so they changed the whole thing because Katara and Sokka were supposed to be with Bumi and Aang, and then the whole point was for him to save his friends, but then they just changed the whole thing. I don't know, I didn't like it.
That episode, it bugged me that they brought in Secret Tunnel as a throwaway also. It's like, if you're gonna commit to Secret Tunnel, just do it. Just
you can't do Chang dirty like that.
Yeah. Well, also like that was something I was talking to a friend about. I was like, the thing that bugs me and I find weird about that whole moment is like the whole entire story in the tunnel was about like the two lovers connecting. And then
Yeah.
it felt gross because it was like
It was
Sokka and
Sokka
Katara.
and Katara.
I was like, what the hell? Like, you
What?
completely
Like-
missed the point about, like, this
Yeah.
tunnel and, like, the romance and the foreshadowing. But no, you had to put Sokka and Katara, and it's like...
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
They're siblings.
Yeah.
They tried to play it off as it's like family love. It's like, no.
Nope.
No.
No, that's not
it's
even
like-
what the song says. But okay.
Well, it's like, did you listen to the story you just told about, like lovers meeting on like, using the tunnels to meet and everything? And then you're like, oh, it's family love. It's like, sure.
Yeah. Bro,
Sure.
is it? Is that what you're pushing?
Bro.
Okay.
Bro,
Oh, God.
no, but what I was gonna say, one of the casts that I really have a big issue though is the actor that they used for Jet could have been a better Zuko.
Oh.
He would have made a much better Zuko because that Jet just has a much more Sebastiano Amoruso, sorry. He just has, at least to me, he had a more like injured dark energy than Dallas James Liu, who they picked for a Zuko. To me, Dallas James Zuko just looks way more. He has a more of a baby face than what I would want for Zuko. So I think that if they would have maybe flipped those two actors, it would have then been perfect. Jet would have the actor for Jet would have had that kind of like evil but bad boy, but also kind of like he's like the older from the group, because eventually he was going to be part of the crew for the Avatar. That's one of the complaints I had. I wasn't too happy. I think they would have been better if they had switched roles there. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one.
See it.
You can't even think about it right now.
No. I can definitely see it. I think for me, like I was kind of like back and forth on Zuko's actor. I think he plays like whiny Zuko really well. But I don't know. I've yet to see, like, we're not at the point where he's a little bit more matured and everything like that. But as far as baby Zuko who cries about everything and gets mad, I think he did do good. But I think that's interesting because I would be interested to see kind of a swap on, them doing the different characters. I think that could also work potentially. Like I'd be open to it, honestly.
But yeah, you're right. You do bring a good point. He does play pretty well the kind of like the whiny Zuko. But it's, I guess, the angry Zuko, which we see a lot at the very beginning because he's just a very angry guy, man. And for good reasons, right? He went through a lot, dude. Like, imagine being like living with, this very high ranked family, your mom, your dad, your sister. Okay, she's kind of messed up in the head, but, it's still somewhat functional. What family isn't a little dysfunctional, and the next thing you know, your dad kicks you out, burns the shit out of your face, embarrasses you in front of like the entire kingdom, and then banishes you to an impossible task at the time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, of course he's pissed, but I feel like Dallas James Liu didn't, and no disrespect to the actor, I'm sure he's made really great roles, but he's played really great roles, but at least to me, he didn't scare me like the Zuko in the animated series scared me,
Yeah.
like he didn't bring that anger that Zuko has inside of him because of everything that he's gone through. He at least to me, and he also doesn't seem to portray too well, because say whatever you say. So Zuko's a very angry kid, but he's always very respectful to Uncle Ira. Right. And for some reason, this Zuko that we're seeing here is not is not considerate of Uncle Iroh at all, because again, in the animated series, the Zuko we saw there, he you could still see he held his uncle in very high regards, still respected him very well, still kind of like was that guy that like has that that old annoying uncle, but he knows that he's an uncle, so he has to be respectful.
Yeah.
So but that's not what we saw here. So I don't know if it's like a script thing or if it's an actor thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Kippy.
No,
I'm talking way too much, so you go ahead.
No, you're not. You are not at all. No, if anything, I don't know how to shut up. Poor Silver sits through 20 minutes of a diatribe for me. I'm gonna keep it.
It is refreshing, Ambu, to hear like somebody give me like a very intellectual review of anything that we're talking about. That it's not just always you, because I always feel so little in comparison to Ambu. By the way, Kippy, whenever I'm listening to Ambu and he gives me like this like really high level, in deep like explanation about like whatever we're talking about on our other episodes, and then I'm like, I am Silver, I like candy. I'm just like like in the summary, very detailed, very eloquent, and then y'all get me. Titan, crayon.
You just bring the poppy in the sexiness, all right? That's what it is. Like, you bring up really good points.
Thank you. I'm sexy but dumb. Thank you.
You bring up good points. You're not sexy but dumb. You're not a himbo. You're not Kronk. Don't worry about it.
At least you're sexy.
Thanks for calling me a himbo in the most polite way.
No. Oh my god. I thought your whole point was gonna be like you feel smarter because I'm here. I'm like, okay, that's fair.
No, that's not the point I was trying to make. I was trying to say, at least there's two smart people in this conversation, and it's not me. It's you two.
You're smart. Don't play off the. No, I refuse that.
You came up with the Appa like lore that I completely forgot about, and I like to brag about.
I just
being
read
a
something online about it. Anybody get it read? It's fine.
Like,
Go. We're gonna say Ambu.
You brought up the darkness thing, which is great with like Jet, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you. And the reason for that is because I feel like Zuko's character arc requires him to be more hurt and more upset and more obsessed. I mean, you think about how we see it in this is actually something I really love in the live action, is we see how scarred he is with like the compassion is a weakness thing, because we never got to see the depths of, I don't think we really got to see the depths of Zuko's like compassion in the way that we did in this series. Like when they're talking about Unit 41, I believe, when they're saying they're going to sacrifice them, he's like refusing to. He said that's such a stupid strategy, and is like really standing up for them because, even after getting burned and even after like realizing he has to fight his dad even says he held back because he didn't want to like. He was still showing a gentleness to him, and then even said like, the weak can become strong. You just have to let them like give them a chance. And I think that's a whole part of Zuko's story is he's always trying to be so strong, and he thinks he's weak because he's compassionate. So we see the hot-headedness not because he's really just angry or dark. It's coming from a place of pain and expectation, and not just expectation from Ozai and from wanting to like be the prince he's meant to be, but also expectations he's placed upon himself that are impossible. He wants to be the perfect dutiful son. He wants to be the perfect prince. But the thing that we see with him in the blue, and I forget what the name of the blue devil mask?
The blue spirit.
Blue spirit is like, Aang shows him that you can be who you want to be. That idea of perfection isn't who you are, and you don't have to tap into that. And so I think the disrespect to his uncle, I personally didn't see it in this series as much. I actually felt like I saw Zuko pretty consistent throughout as like the character that is needed for what they're trying to do in capture of Zuko. And I think you are going to see that in the next 2 seasons because they have confirmed they're doing the whole entire series. So I do think we need to, I agree with Kippy in the sense of we don't know what's going to happen next to Zuko, and it'll be interesting to see that. I don't think he needs to be dark right now. I think if anything, we need to see that he comes from a place of being broken. And that's what adds the emotional weight of his story. And I hope that in the future seasons they keep that. Like we see Zuko's betrayal of Iroh in, I think, book 2, when he actually injures Aang and has him hit the rock that blocks his chakra, and the guilt that he feels. I hope that we see the consistent conflicting feelings that he has between wanting to fulfill his duty, but then also trying to listen to what his uncle is trying to teach him. So I think, to me, we don't need a dark Zuko right now. We need a very hurt, sad Zuko who's trying to be what he thinks he needs to be.
He got that very well. He definitely is very whiny and very sad. That you got. No, you're right. He is whiny and very sad. You're absolutely correct. If that's what we need right now, then he's nailing it.
I think something else you mentioned was, so you kind of made a little jab at Azula, which is unforgivable. But
Wait, did I?
I love Azula.
No. I'm talking about
just to clarify, I like crazy women. I can appreciate. I can appreciate. I'm sorry, Moose. This has no reflection on Moose whatsoever, right? But I like. But I have a type, and it's yandere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can appreciate a woman that I know that I can close my eyes and she can end my life. Okay. There's just something hot about that, right? So no, I don't hate Azula.
We know Moose is like that in real life. But okay, so my point is, Azula is like honestly my favorite character in the whole series. I love that. Like when you think of really powerful characters, most people will attach to like Fire Lord Ozai or even Zhao in the series, the animated series, was kind of more bloodthirsty for his own goals and things like that, and just very like driven in what they wanted to pursue. But to have this like I think I can't remember her age in the original, but I believe she was a minor. Not even an adult. Like she was really young. I want to say like 15 or 16 maybe. And this bitch is crazy. But not like crazy, but like strategic and tactical and very terrifying because of those things. And just every little detail was in her mind at that young of an age. So imagine like, push forward to however many years, had she been successful in what she was doing, like that woman would be unstoppable. Like it's terrifying. Yeah. But I think what's interesting about the live action is, kind of what Anbu was saying. They're kind of looking at a different perspective with both of the siblings. So you're seeing how Zuko is impacted emotionally, how he's being manipulated, how things are, he has so much turmoil inwardly that he doesn't really know how to act. Like, he has this goal and this thing that he needs to do, but he's struggling so much with those emotions and, the conflict in himself. But then you also see, which is kind of like the first time, what Azula is having to go through. And what is driving her, because they don't really touch on that in the series that I can recall, at least not in the animated series. I haven't read all the books and comics and stuff, so I'm not sure. But so with that, like you're seeing how she, in the series, it was like she was daddy's favorite, like she did everything right. She was amazing and all that stuff. But here in that live action, they're kind of showing the beginning of, she wasn't perfect, She was better than Zuko, but she still had flaws that she needed to work out. And her father was manipulating her as well to push her to be like more ruthless and more, strategic and tactical and all of those things. So it's kind of, like they're both kind of messed up, to be honest, but they kind of put depth to it in the live action. So you have a better understanding of why they're that way.
Yeah, if I may
Yeah,
interject real quick,
good.
I'll be curious to see how Azula's story arc goes because I'm a little bit afraid it will take away from her finale, like her Agnikai versus
Yeah.
Zuko, and then also her fight against Katara. Because if everybody who's listening to this remembers how it ends, it's tragic. You realize that
Yeah.
how broken Azula is in like everything that she's done and what it's why and it kind of recontextualizes a lot of her actions to where she's still like kind of crazy and does a lot of evil stuff, but you understand to where it's like you can't agree with it, but you understand. So I'm gonna be curious to see how they play into that with what they've
Hmm.
done with introducing Ozai and Azula so early into the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I'm excited to see how the actress, what is her name, Elizabeth Yu, is able to portray Azula. I don't have anything negative to say on the actress as far goes how Azula was made. It was nice to see a little bit more on the lore about them, similar to how you said about the troop, right? That Zuko stood up for. But yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about it. It's going to be interesting to see that last fight, right?
Yeah.
Because it was very emotional, right? She gets
Mm-hmm.
defeated, she gets pinned down, she's spitting out fire, she's throwing a fit, right? So how
Yeah.
is that gonna man, that's a lot to live up to for Elizabeth Yu, honestly.
Well, that
She's
and she was
because
also.
Azula
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say Azula is just a very complex character. She's a
So well
very
written.
complex character, and she has so many different faces and I don't so many different layers. It's gonna be crazy to try and show us that Azula from that we see at the very end. But go ahead, Kippy. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna add, like, because there's also the topic of her mother. Like that was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing why
Yeah,
Zuko and
yeah.
Azulo kind of struggle with different things in that way. Because in the beginning it was Zuko kind of like his compassion and his kindness comes from his mother. Like his mother
Mm.
taught him to be that way. And then Iroh is the one who kind of nurtures that. But with
Yeah.
Azula, like she, even though she wouldn't admit it, like she had her own abandonment issues and everything like that, and she didn't have Uncle Iroh to be there to nurture that part of
Yeah.
her, so she kind of had to be forced to push all that down. And then, as many people I'm sure are well aware, when you try to push things down like that for years and years, it's all gonna come up, and
Yep.
that's that
Mhm.
scene, like that. Because even before the fight, I think wasn't that when she was doing the thing where she was like cutting her bangs and
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
kind of yeah. So like I'm interested too to see like where they go with all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go
Kimmy,
ahead,
I
Abu.
honestly did not remember that until you brought it up. And I was like, oh, she did do that.
mhm.
God, that's gonna be. Oh, I can't. I hope I'm gonna be
It
curious
gives
of the
me
emotional payoff.
chills like thinking about it because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I hope they like add some things like that.
So
Hopefully
speaking of,
they do. Huh?
yeah, sorry, Silver. I was gonna say on a different tangent. Speaking of chills, can I just say Paul's Sun Hyung Lee? I really adore that man. I've watched him since Kim's Convenience and like really kind of like followed his career. I love the fact that when they asked him if he would sing "Leaves on the Vine," he refused to. And I
Yeah.
love that they made it more of a like a background song for it when he's remembering the death of his son. That
Mhm.
made me
Mhm.
tear up, and then to hear that, I was like,
Bro,
"Oh
yeah.
man!" Like, I'm gonna say that this
He
I
refused to. He said he refused. Did he say
well
why?
he didn't want to ruin he wanted to honor Mako
Mako,
because I
yeah.
don't know if you know Mako died after book 2 when they were doing the show, and that's when I think Greg Baldwin stepped in for Mako's
Mhm.
part because Greg Baldwin basically took over in Samurai Jack. He took over the main Aku and took over Iroh. So a lot of people think that Mako saying "Leaves on the Vine" as a goodbye to the fans because he knew he was dying.
Yeah.
And so I know, it's making me tear up thinking about it. So he didn't want to like take away from that, and so that's why they opted instead for it to be like a orchestral sound in the background during the funeral, the mourning of his son.
That adds so much context because in that scene, I heard the music and I was bawling my eyes out, and I was watching with my mom. And she had seen some of the series, but I sat there and I was literally like, they better not, like, and not because I didn't want to hear it, but it was like, I was already on the verge of being destroyed emotionally. And I was like, bro, don't do this
You're
to
like,
me.
there's just certain things you don't fuck with, all right? There's just some things you just don't mess with.
It's hard enough rewatching it in the animated series because I still fucking cry. But like, I was like, no, don't do it like this. And then it was just the orchestra. And so that made me feel a little bit better. But that's actually, I didn't know that about him refusing to see. It's kind of actually really cool.
I didn't know that. That is cool. That is respectful. I again, like you said, since oh my god, what's the name of the show? The Kim's Convenience.
Kim's Convenience.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Since then, I've tried to follow everything that he's done and watch everything he does. I genuinely love his his interpretation of Ira. I kind of want to see more because I don't think it's his fault. Again, I think it's the script, right?
Yes.
And because in the animated series, tea is life for him, right? And here we didn't see that. I'm like, dude, this man was sipping on tea every single day. Like life was tea. That was part of his identity, and we're not seeing it here. Like, what the hell, Netflix? Like that was the disappointing.
Was it
part
Pai
as well.
His Pai Show game or whatever? Yeah.
Pai Show.
God, I was so because like he mentions tea like one time. And it was him literally saying like he was joining Zuko on his journey. He's like, I've got enough tea for the journey. And that was it. I was like, are we going to see like the Jaded Dragon? Are we going to see him like doing all the like tea stuff and talking about like using tea as like analogies and metaphors? Mm-hmm. Like, please?
Yeah, I missed that. I'm like, come on. It was so, I loved it because it was so annoying to Zuko. But then he like, he's taking in what he's saying. And he's just like, oh my God, uncle, but at the same time, like, it sticks with him. Yeah. So I was kind of sad because he was all about tea and snacks and Pai Show. And I was just like, where is Uncle Iroh? The Uncle Iroh I know.
Like, relatable.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find this mixed version of Leaves from the Vine, the Little Soldier Boy song, and I'm gonna send it to you guys so that I can make you cry.
Oh no!
By the way.
Oh my God! Why would you do that to me? Anyway, I have to go right now. I'm just kidding.
Ambu knows very well that I'm very good at this, so it's you're all gonna tear up.
Thank you if you do have to go, thank you for joining us.
No, I was just kidding.
Thank God. I was like, okay, well, but
thanks, Silver, for like scaring her off.
No, I meant to tell you guys, I'll say this real quick. Around 9ish, I probably do have to go. It's about 8 right now for me. Just because I promised to help my mom with some stuff. It's fine.
If anything, like the thing is, we already tackled one of our last questions, and that was, future expectations for the live action. Yeah. I think we've laid out most of them, but any additional things that you guys have expectations? Because we talked about Azula, right?
I have so many.
I'm right there with you guys. For me, it's going to be definitely seeing how Azula is laid out at the beginning and seeing Uncle Iroh just also give us a little more.
Okay, 2 things real quick. First of all, Netflix, stop doing the 8-episode format. Give us 13. Just do it. I don't care that you have this 8-episode obsession. Second of all, I want ripped Iroh. We better see the ripped.
Yes!
Yes!
Oh my God, yes!
We need him.
We need that Rocky scene, dude. We need it.
Even if the show is terrible, like in the end, if I get ripped Iroh, it's worth it for me in the journey. That's all I need right now. Just give me ripped Iroh, dude doing the sit-ups like on the cage,
Yeah.
doing his push-ups, like as long
Pull
as
up
I get
on the
that.
top of the jail cell.
Yeah.
Bro. Yeah, I agree, full agree. So I have a couple of things too. For me, it was for me, because everybody compares, like, is this going to be as bad as the movie we don't speak about, or is it going to be better? Everybody was unsure because Mike and Brian left, and so everyone's like, oh God, what does that mean? My biggest thing was Appa. How are they going to make Appa look? Because in the movie we don't speak of, he looked horrifying. He looked like
Oh,
a
God,
human
yeah.
face and like scary and just not anything like he was supposed to be. And so that's one thing that I'm so happy with this series, is that they really, made him look like Appa from the series. He has the big kind eyes. He's got just like the really cute face, and he looks more like Bison, not like realistic Bison, like, the other movie where everything was like hyper realistic and gross looking. But,
Oh
they
yeah.
they just
Oh
they just made
gosh.
him look so fluffy and cute, and I loved it. But the other thing was kind of reeling back all the way to sort of the beginning of what we were talking about with how they switch around the story and everything. One thing, like one complaint I did have, is how they're handling Sokka's romances, because they
Yes.
Oh
switched
yeah.
Yue and Suki, which makes no sense to me, because the whole point of Yue was because she became the moon, and that was his thing about how he was grieving over losing her. And and then we get the joke about my girlfriend turned into the moon and all that stuff.
That was so
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
But and then later he had his moment with Suki, and they kind of like formed their bond, and it was more meaningful, and he had like all of that going on. But now it's like he meets Suki, they have a connection, and then he goes and he meets Yue, and it's just, I don't know, like that really threw it off for me. I was like, I don't like
Yeah.
this. I don't like the way they did this.
And
Yeah,
sorry,
I didn't either. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Silver. I'll make my point later. It's a different tangent to kind of pivoting off of that. But go on.
No, it's short, and it's just I kind of liked sort of how they did with Suki, and the relationship was pretty meaningful, and she just kind of took lead and just like sunk a big one on Sokka. But yeah, the transition into Princess Yue wasn't very good. It left me feeling kind of weird also about that, and how the order of things. It just I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
man.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up about Sokka's story, and one of the things, so my biggest critique of this live action series is a lot of the characters somewhat feel like a caricature of themselves, or they're not allowed to have the room to grow as a character. Like, okay, Sokka's insecurities come out, that's fine, but also his whole discussion was on hypermasculinity and the toxicity of that,
Yeah.
and how he think he had to be a man. And so the whole thing with Suki was him learning that, like, women were powerful too, and it didn't matter if you were male or female, you could still be a badass warrior who kicked butt and took names. And so, while some of the stuff with Suki, I just, it felt weird. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of that story felt like it was missing context. So, like, the scene where she's teaching him, like, how to fight, I kind of felt like it lost a little bit of that, because that whole sequence was about her undoing the, like, masculine ideals or the toxic masculinity to where Sokka becomes more open. So
Yeah.
I think for me, what I hope the show does is it doesn't worry about stuff like that. Like, I know that we're trying to be more aware of writing and problematic stuff, but there was a reason behind the problematic writing for Sokka,
Yeah.
to where, like, I kind of feel like it takes away from it. So I'm hoping that they're willing to take more of the original source to heart rather than doing away with parts because they're worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
no, you're right. I mean, that's the problem with like trying to, and I'm trying to use the word, but like there's this weird trend of, and maybe I even had this conversation with Kippy, where Netflix likes to make things woke.
Yeah.
And it takes away from, like we just said, Sokka was supposed to be this toxic masculine individual, but because that's how he was raised, those were the expectations that were, quote unquote placed, and or his view of his what he saw of the males in his tribe before they all had to leave. But even Sokka sheds tears in the animated series, right? When he kind of realizes, I am weak. I'm weak.
Yeah.
Because that's what those tears mean. I'm weak. I thought I was strong. I thought I was tougher. I thought I was better, but I'm not. I'm weak. And that's why he even he even puts up the whole getup, right? It's not humiliating. It's humbling of having to put on the whole Kyosho outfit. It's not about humiliating the toxic masculine guy, but Avatar Atla, the animated series, was able to tackle on equal gender back in the day in a
Yeah.
much more tasteful way than what the fuck Netflix is trying to do right now.
Yeah. Well, not even just Sokka's character, but also Suki. They like kind of turned her
Yeah.
into a high school girl rather than being the strong, like
Yeah.
she didn't need a
Because she
man,
was
but
powerful.
she chose Sokka, like like it was kind of that, like their whole dynamic was that she could kick his ass. And she thought it was funny. She would giggle about it, but then they had that respect for each other. And she trains him, they like work together, and then they became like a great dynamic duo because of that connection. And in this one, it was just like they started out with Suki being the way that she was, and then they kind of gave her the like, oh, it's a boy, and it just
like, what are these feelings?
I didn't like that. I did not like that. I
Yep,
love
I
Suki with
agree
all
with
my
you.
heart.
It was cringy. It was
but
bad.
that was like, why though? Why?
Yeah.
So hopefully they show us a stronger version this coming seasons.
Yeah. Especially because later she has like the whole riot scene, which I don't even know if they're gonna do, because I think they skip over that story.
No,
Because
not
that
yet.
okay. No. I'm thinking of the one where on the ship, maybe, where the prisoners were on the ship. I don't know. I think
are you talking about the one where
with
it was
Haru,
like a
or Haru, or however you say his name.
yeah.
His father.
Yeah, isn't it the one where like they tried to make Katara look like an airbender, but then it was like Momo was there, and then they're like,
you're like, that flying lemur can bend or whatever.
oh god,
that was funny. Yeah, they completely left out Haru as a character. I thought at first Jet's character I thought was Haru, but then I realized later that was actually Jet, and I was really confused. I was like, oh, okay, because that just threw me off, like how they switched the story up like that.
Yeah, wasn't Jet's story supposed to be in Ba Sing Se?
I think so, yeah.
And then
or closer to that. Yeah, because Haru came first. He was like the first guy
Haru
that
came first before Jet. Yeah.
Yeah, because Katara kind of had a little crush on him or whatever, and then she, got over that real fast. But then, like, she was helping everybody and stuff like that. But what's weird is that they kind of change, like you were saying, they're trying to be kind of woke about things, but also at the same time, they're going backwards because they dialed down the whole thing with Katara and was it Paku? At the where Yue is.
Oh, at the Northern Water Tribe.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yes. Okay.
Oh, and then they left out the fact that her necklace was made by him because he was with Gran Gran, and I'm so upset about that. He's like, how could you leave that part out?
right? And then
That's
like,
right. That was that romance. I completely forgot about that.
isn't that what changes his mind about training her too? Is like he sees that.
Yes. That's what makes him change his whole world was that.
Can I just say how ridiculous it was? We get all the way to the Northern Water Tribe. It's like, I'm so stoked to fight, and she never gets trained. And then all of a sudden he's like, he basically is like, you take command. You're a master now. I was like, what?
Yeah. That was another thing too, is that Aang was supposed to be training with Katara already, and Boy literally does nothing except talk to her about bending. And I was so upset because his whole thing was, because he's such a natural, because he's the Avatar or whatever, he was already like, you know, he was looking at the scrolls like she was, and he was catching on really quickly, and it infuriated Katara. And then that kind of went into the whole her trying to get the, you know, steal from the pirates to get the other scroll and things like that, which they mention, but they don't actually like show any of that stuff. But it was just like there was no connection, because that was where the connection begins with the whole Aang and Katara dynamic. Is that they were doing stuff like that together, but then he just sits there and he watches, and it's so awkward. I was like, huh? Like, okay.
He gives her like some sort of semi-helpful advice, and then that's it. Like, feel the energy, and then just, I'll sit there and watch you.
And it's like, he was encouraging in the series, but he was also doing it with her. And so it felt more meaningful, but then it just, I don't know, like, there were a lot of little changes like that where I was just like, ew, why?
Well, one last thing, because we've now gone over an hour, and I think we basically have talked about what our future expectations are for the live action. But what about, I don't know if you guys forgot about this, the live action that I thought was kind of stupid. When the Kyoshi warriors detain all of them, and then they're like, no, he's the Avatar. And then the gigantic Kyoshi statue just kind of like sets those like big high beams on him. I was like, bro, come on. You can do that, but you won't give us all these other like animated creatures, but you will give us that. Come on.
They had, speaking, okay, I'm sorry, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but the panda spirit, they turned him into a little baby. He was supposed to be massive, and I was like, why is he so small?
And mean looking.
God, that, and like, I mean, I know we're trying to wrap it up too. You're right. It's like, there's more I think about. Like the Ko storyline too, like the face stealer storyline too. I wanted more of that. There's just so much more.
They threw the library owl in there too in the spirit world. It was just kind of so random. I was like, wait, why is he here?
It's like, wait, what book are we in now? What's happening?
Because I was like, I'm pretty sure he's the one that like guards the library and then gets mad when they get in there. I was like, why the hell is he here? This doesn't make sense to me. And then like the whole that nobody else could understand him, and I was just like, what? Like, oh god, it threw me off so much. The whole spirit world thing I felt like it got so rushed and thrown to the side when it's like a whole part of like Avatar is about finding balance with like nature and the spiritual and like life, and it was like, oh yeah, here's the spiritual and here we go. Like,
well, they threw Yue in there too as a fox, apparently, which was
what is up with that?
I was like, I guess they were trying to show her connection to the spirit world, but I was like, her story it explains her connection, so I don't know why that was necessary.
Yeah, and why a fox? I don't even know if maybe it's in the comic, but I don't know. But what, you know, it was like a koi fish, fox, like the moon.
Because usually, So in a lot of Asian cultures, foxes are considered messengers between the spirit world and the human and like earthly realm. They often are considered tricksters, and they can also like go between. So that's why most of the time foxes are symbolized in spiritual related stuff, is because they're considered like the envoys of of the worlds.
No, I get that, but it's just like it was
Weird.
still weird. Like it was weird. It was still
I'm
weird, man.
hoping they
But
don't leave that as something where she'll come back to
I
like
hope
talk
not.
to Aang or whoever. I'm like, no, she needs to
Yeah.
stay gone.
No.
Yeah.
They need a no. Yeah, no. She's dead. She's dead, man. That's it. That's how it goes in the story, and that's how it should stay. None of this. No, it's just not going to work out. But yeah, guys. Obviously, a lot of weird things happen in the live action. I think I already have our title for the episode. It's Atla. What a cluster. If you're
Yeah.
okay with that title, Ambu.
Yeah, you go for it.
Because honestly, they added a lot of things that they shouldn't have. They missed a lot of things that they could have added. And again, a lot of this, I feel like it could have been solved by just adding literally up to those 13 episodes. I don't know if it's like a budget thing,
It's probably
Well, they
partial corporate thing and partial budget thing,
Well, I also think too they're kind of worried about age as well, because at some point they're all going to be grown up and be adult, and the disillusion, like this being disillusioned to like what's happening, or the suspending disbelief might be harder. So maybe they're trying to rush it that way as well too. But yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean? Like Elizabeth Yu, who plays Azula, she's 21 years old, dude.
But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I don't know like how old the kid that plays Aang was born in like 2010. He's barely 14. And I wonder,
I think him and Katara, the actress for Katara, are the ones that are the youngest ones. But I think everybody's is of age.
No, that's fair. I think what I'm trying to say is like, because I was thinking that one of the things I wish they would do is be willing to do multiple seasons per each book. But I think time is a part of the essence too. Time is of the essence as well.
True.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at.
Who knows? They what's it called, that series from Netflix also, something things.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Yeah,
that went on forever.
Yeah.
And they could, and those seasons lasted more than, didn't they? They lasted more than 8 episodes. They could have done
10 episodes, right?
The possibilities could have been great if they decided to invest as much as Stranger Things. I don't know why they anticipated that the fans wouldn't be invested in a series that long to be able to explain the books much better. They clearly can do it and have the budget to do it, but they just chose not to. And I don't know if it's also because the original creators left right halfway through the making of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that also played a factor into how, another Korra situation. Oh, actually, let's not end the episode yet. You guys wanted to talk about Korra.
Oh, well, do we want to put that in this episode, or do we want to do a separate one for that?
Let's do a separate one. Because that's like an entire other can of worms.
Yeah.
That's
Dear
like
Lord,
pretty
yeah.
massive
We can't
all on
even
its own.
fit all of the
Kippy, do you
want to
come back to the tavern, and do you want to come back to the tavern and talk a little bit more about Atla and also the
hell
Korra
yeah. It will have to be after my recovery.
Of course.
But
Okay.
once I am human again,
talk about it.
absolutely, I would love to. I could talk about Avatar and Korra all day long. So
Yeah. Well,
Good.
we do want to say, Kippy.
thoughts?
Well, first of all, Kippy, I want to say thank you for being a part of this, and
absolutely.
it's been a lot of fun. Silver, keep on being the sexy badass that you are. And for the love of God, Netflix, give us 13 episodes per season. It's fine. We love it. We can handle it. No, I worry. This is the thing that I think I worry about, or like what Atla to me puts me on edge is, I worry that Netflix keeps buying all these properties, doing these live actions, kind of diluting the essence of it, and then losing what makes the heart of these shows so good. And so I don't want that. Like, I worry so much about that. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the Yu Yu Hakusho one, But Yu Yu Hakusho, as
Oh
much as
yeah.
I enjoyed it, was also rushed to no end, and it infuriated me in a lot of ways of like how many story arcs they bludgeoned into like 4 or 5 episodes. But like,
Yeah.
if there's one caution that I really want to give to like Netflix is like, if you're gonna buy these properties and do live actions, please do them right. Fans are going to be willing to wait for a long time to watch them
Yeah.
if you're willing to put the time and the quality in. I would rather you tell me like, oh hey, 5 years later, Avatar: The Last Airbender is finally like recording and like in production, rather than giving me like what feels like a rush job and a hack job of like a lot of the elements that made Avatar so impactful. So that would be
Yeah,
my
they're
closing thought.
definitely underestimating the fandom. And I think a lot of people are really anticipating how they're gonna do Toph. Because
Yeah.
that is a character you don't want to fuck up.
Oh,
So
definitely.
Dude,
I think that
yeah,
will.
you're right. You bring a good point.
I personally feel that will
Oh
make or
gosh.
break the series. To be honest.
Oh,
Honestly,
absolutely.
yeah, that is definitely gonna set the yeah, that's gonna set the bar. Toph. Oh
Yeah.
my god, please just again, just like Uncle Ira's song, like don't that's another thing
Hmm.
you just don't there's just things you don't mess with. And you're right, Ambu, just to kind of like piggyback on your closing thoughts. Uh I hope they don't Netflix doesn't turn into another Disney where they're just buying a bunch of IPs and they just kind of how they did with Star Wars at the beginning. They just wrecked it, just wrecked
Yeah.
it. And I just hope they don't do that in these next 2 seasons. And let's hope for the best for Toph. But
Yeah.
guys, pay your tabs. Thank you for hanging out here at the tavern. Don't forget to tip your barkeep. Don't forget that we have ninja cats that will find you. They will kill you, and they will empty out your pockets if you don't pay your tabs.
Yeah, they actually cut my pocket with the shuriken earlier, and it was kind of weird, but I guess I forgot to pay for a couple of meads. So just
They don't care
your
who you
tab.
are, even if it's us. Even if it's
Yeah.
us, they will take our money. So make sure you pay your tabs. Don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube. We are on YouTube, guys. We are on Spotify. There's going to be some changes for Apple very soon, but I will try and make sure that everything gets sorted out so the episodes still keep coming out on Apple. Google Podcasts, that's gonna change, so don't follow us there anymore, but for sure we're gonna still be on Apple, on iTunes. We're still gonna be there. Episodes are still gonna be going up there. We're still gonna be going on Spotify, and of course on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to us today at the TBD Tavern. Have a good night.
Have a good night.